If you're tired of planning parent nights that no one shows up to, you're not alone. But maybe the problem isn't parents, it's how we're inviting them. You know, we've tried everything to get parents involved. We've offered free food, childcare, even door prizes, but they still don't show up. This is what a school principal shared with me. And after they finished speaking, I asked one simple question that changed everything. Have you ever asked them what they actually want? The room falls silent. See, this conversation happens in schools across America every day. We design programs for families instead of with them, and then wonder why engagement remains low. Well, in this video, I'll show you how to break this cycle and build authentic partnerships that transform your school community and boost student success. Well, let's talk about the broken promise of parent involvement. Imagine this. The school gym is packed for the annual bake sale. Tables full of cupcakes, posters hanging from the walls. But come parent-teacher conference night, rows of empty chairs. This happens all the time. We put so much effort into getting parents in the building, offering food, raffles, photo booths, but then we're surprised when the connection still feels shallow. Well, that's because we've been measuring the wrong thing. Too often we reduce parent involvement to checklist. Did they sign a permission slip? Did they show up for the fundraiser? Did they bring snacks for the party? But these checkboxes don't tell us whether families feel accepted, supported, and included as partners in their child's learning. Parents might come to the event and still walk away feeling like a guest, not a partner. And here's the thing, schools keep doing more, but families aren't always connecting more. More events don't automatically mean stronger relationships. A bake sale might raise money, but it doesn't always build trust. Think about it. When schools focus on what parents can do for them rather than what they can build with them, something gets lost. The relationship becomes transactional. Show up, donate, volunteer, but not what do you see at home, or what do you need, or how can we work together? This especially leaves out the families we need to reach the most. Those who don't have flexible jobs, who may feel unsure about walking into a school because of past experiences, or who speak a different language than the one on the school flyer. They're not disengaged, they're just disconnected from systems that weren't built with them in mind. See, there's a difference between involvement and engagement. Involvement says, come to our meeting, support our fundraiser. Engagement says, let's solve this together. Your voice matters here. One is about participation, the other is about partnership. And when we make that shift from events to relationships, from talking to parents to planning with them, everything changes. Students benefit the most because they start getting consistent messages, care, and support from both home and school. Here's what it looks like in action. Instead of launching another family night and wondering why no one shows up, a school starts asking families what they think would help their child to come to school more consistently. Suddenly, the ideas come in, things that hadn't even crossed the school's radar. And when those ideas are implemented, attendance actually improves. At the heart of it, every family has insight. The parent who works 2 jobs but knows exactly what motivates their child, the grandparent who can't make meetings but supports learning every single night at home. We just have to ask. So here's a real challenge. What would shift if we stopped planning for families and started planning with them? And that's where the transformation begins. Here's what happens when parents feel like outsiders. Imagine sitting in a parent-teacher conference where the teacher talks the entire time, then asks, any questions? Right as the clock runs out. Now that's how a lot of parents experience school, not as partners, but as passive recipients of information. This kind of one-way communication is all too common. It tells families, we've got this handled. Your job is just to listen, sign, and comply. And here's the truth. That model doesn't work, especially for the families who most need to feel included. Take Miguel, a father who speaks Spanish at home. He only heard from the school when his son missed an assignment. No one ever asked me what he's good at, he said. Only what he didn't do. Think about that for a second. Instead of being asked for insight, he was treated like a problem to manage. See, when schools lead with rules instead of relationships, trust breaks down. And when parents don't feel trusted, they often disengage. Not because they don't care, but because they don't feel invited in. It shows up in ways that are easy to miss, like back to school nights where parents are expected to sit quietly while policies are read aloud. or volunteer opportunities that only work for those who have flexible jobs. Even when schools mean well, they often design experiences around what they think families should do without asking what families actually need or can offer. And yet, families carry so much insight. A grandmother might not speak English, but she knows her grandson's learning style better than any test. A father working 2 jobs might not be able to make every event, but he knows exactly how to motivate his daughter to keep going when things get hard. And when schools focus on what parents lack instead of what they bring, they miss out on those insights. And so do students. Here's what happens. Parents start to feel like their only role is to sign forms, donate snacks, or show up on cue. Teachers get frustrated when families don't respond, and the students, they miss out on the power of a united team supporting them at home and at school. This isn't just about feelings, it's about effectiveness. And when families feel seen and included, they're more likely to support learning at home, reinforce expectations, and collaborate when challenges come up. But that kind of connection doesn't happen through surface level involvement. It happens through real partnerships. We got to stop thinking of family engagement as an extra. It's not a side dish, it's the main course. And it starts by treating every family as a full partner. One school I was working with started asking parents, what strengths or skills would you like to share with students? Suddenly, the sign-up sheet wasn't for snack duty. It was full of volunteers for woodworking demos, poetry readings in home languages, and career talks. Another teacher tried something simple. Once a month, she called home to share a positive observation about each student. No agenda, no ask, just, here's what I saw your child do well this week. Those small calls built real relationships. And what do these strategies have in common? They flip the script. Instead of focusing on what families aren't doing, they focus on what families know and can contribute. Because here's the thing, the families who don't show up every event, well, they still have a story to tell. They have hopes, strengths, and solutions, but they're not going to shout it out over a loudspeaker. Schools have to invite them in with curiosity, not judgment. If we keep treating families like they're on the outside, they'll stay there. But if we redesign what being involved looks like, if we replace monologues with conversation, checklists with collaboration, we'll start to build something far more powerful. See, the shift from involvement to engagement isn't about doing more, it's about doing differently. And it starts with a simple but powerful question. What do you know about your child that we should know too? Let's talk about the engagement advantage. Picture this, 2 schools, just blocks apart. Same student demographics, same district resources. But while school A struggles to get 5 parents to show up for monthly meetings, school B has 85% of parents participating in school planning teams. What's the difference? It's not better flyers, more snacks, or flashier events. It's engagement. So what's the real difference between involvement and engagement? Involvement is when schools say, here's our event, please attend. Engagement is when schools ask, what do you think we should build together? Now, it's a shift from hosting events to building relationships, from collecting signatures to creating shared solutions. And here's what's important. Engagement doesn't mean giving up control. It means sharing it with the people who know students best, their families. When teachers and parents team up, they gain something far more valuable than a few extra volunteers. They gain insight, trust, and long-term support. One parent, for example, shared a small idea during a home visit that sparked an entire school-wide literacy project. That one conversation helped improve outcomes, not just for her child, but for dozens of students. When schools take the time to build trust up front through home visits, listening circles, or even a single phone call that isn't about a problem, they build partnerships that last. And those partnerships create momentum. So families who might never attend a PTA meeting because of work schedules, language barriers, or past negative experiences are still full of insight and care. Engagement means meeting those families where they are, not waiting for them to show up on our terms. It also means schools start measuring something new, not just how many parents came to the carnival, but how many families helped shape the school calendar. Not just who brought snacks, but who contributed ideas that made instruction better. That's the shift from transactional to transformational. The truth is, families are the only constant in a child's K-12 journey. Teachers change, principals come and go, but parents, guardians, and caregivers stay. They're the thread that ties it all together. So why do so many schools still focus on involvement when engagement clearly works better? And that's the question we'll dive into next. Because if your school is still planning events for families instead of building partnerships with them, it might be time for a shift. Because parents should be co-educators. Think about it. Doctors would never treat a patient without asking about their symptoms or medical history. But in schools, we often make big instructional decisions without ever asking the people who know students the best, their families. Every parent holds a deep well of knowledge about how their child learns. They know what lights them up, what shuts them down, what makes them try harder, and what makes them give up. That insight exists whether schools ask for it or not. The real problem happens when we treat that insight like a nice-to-have side note instead of the essential data it really is. Too often, teachers are trained to deliver content, but not to collaborate with families. It's not because they don't care. It's because most teacher training barely touches on how to build real partnerships with parents. And that gap shows up in the classroom. Take Miss Rivera, a third grade teacher in Chicago. She couldn't figure out how to get one of her students interested in reading. At a parent-teacher conference, the boy's mom casually mentioned that he loved acting out stories at home. Light bulb moment, Miss Rivera started using role-playing and dramatic readings. 2 months later, his reading score shot up. Not because of a new program, but because someone finally connected home wisdom with classroom strategies. This kind of story isn't rare. It's just underutilized. When schools build relationships with families, students benefit in all kinds of ways. Teachers can manage classrooms more effectively, lessons feel more relevant, students feel more seen. None of it costs any money. It just takes a mindset shift. Still, some educators worry, well, if I treat parents like co-educators, does that make my role less important? Absolutely not. It's like flying a plane. You still need a skilled pilot, but that pilot relies on air traffic control. The collaboration keeps everyone safe and on course. In the same way, teachers and families are working toward the same destination, student growth. This is especially true for students with learning differences. One special ed teacher I work with shared how a parent casually mentioned her daughter focuses best after lunch. That insight led to a small schedule change, and suddenly, the student was twice as productive. No data report had picked up on it, but a parent living it every day had the answer. And it's not just individual fixes. Families from underserved communities often bring powerful strategies they developed through lived experiences, especially when navigating systems that weren't designed with them in mind. That kind of real-world wisdom rarely shows up in the curriculum binder, but it's often exactly what struggling students need. Schools that do this well don't leave it for chance. They create simple systems for capturing family input. Some send out learning at home surveys, or others hold student-led conferences where families speak first. A few have even built parent reflections into IEP meetings, not just as a checkbox, but as core insight into the plan. And when students see their parents treated as educators, something shifts. One middle schooler said it best after a science teacher referenced her mom's traditional cooking in a lesson. It felt like the school finally saw us. That kind of recognition builds identity and belonging in a way no slogan ever could. Teachers benefit too. When they connect with families, they feel less alone. These partnerships lighten the emotional load and build cultural understanding. Some people say this can't be done at scale, but it already is. It doesn't take hours of planning. It takes small habits. Asking what works at home during the check-in. Calling with a strength, not a complaint. Bringing in a family story to anchor a lesson. These aren't grand gestures, but they build trust over time. And here's the shift. Parents aren't just here to sign permission slips or sell raffle tickets. They're part of the teaching team. Their insight fills the gap between what a textbook says and what a child actually needs. The next step, turning this mindset into a system, because if we want every student to succeed, we can't keep families on the sidelines. It's time to bring their wisdom into the heart of our classroom. This is what I call the doing with difference. Imagine throwing a birthday party for someone without asking what kind of cake they like or who they'd even want at the party. That's how it can feel for families when schools roll out programs that were designed without their input. Well-meaning, of course, but still disconnected. This doing to approach shows up more often than we think. Schools plan elaborate parent nights, create monthly newsletters, or launch new involvement initiatives, all without ever asking families what they need or want. And then they wonder why the turnout is low. Take a middle school that hosted a math night filled with worksheets and time drills. Only a handful of families showed up, but after the staff sat down and actually asked parents what would be helpful, everything changed. The next math night featured things like grocery budgeting, real life discounts, and household planning. It wasn't just more fun, it was practical. Attendance tripled and parents left feeling like their time had been respected. This is what happens when we stop doing things for families and start creating things with them. The benefits go far beyond a packed cafeteria. When families are invited into the conversation early, they become collaborators, not just spectators. Teachers often feel less isolated too. Now, there's a common myth that deep engagement takes more time than traditional parent involvement. But here's the truth. When schools co-create with families from the start, they avoid a lot of backtracking. One elementary school that I work with discovered that most parents weren't reading their long monthly newsletters, so they swapped them for short text messages. Parents were more responsive and staff saved hours. When parents are part of decisions, they become powerful advocates, not just for their own child, but for the entire community. In one district that I worked with, leaders included parents in tough budget conversations because families helped shape the plan. They understood the trade-offs and supported the outcome. Compare that to districts that cut programs behind closed doors and then face backlash. The difference lies in how we communicate. Traditional approaches rely on announcements, mass emails, permission slips, automated calls. Real engagement comes through conversation. We can also take a cue from community organizing. The most impactful family engagement efforts don't start with a PowerPoint presentation. They start with listening, storytelling, and shared goals. The way we measure success needs to evolve too. Traditional involvement counts how many people showed up, but engagement is about how family input shapes the outcome. Did a parent suggestion lead to a new reading strategy? Did a discipline policy change after listening to family stories? That's the kind of progress that lasts. It all boils down to one simple but powerful question. Are we doing this for families or with them? That question changes everything. Every policy, every event, every email. It turns symbolic involvement into real, lasting engagement. And here's the best part. You don't need a huge budget to make this shift. In the next part of this video, we'll talk about practical steps your school can take starting tomorrow to build partnerships that truly work. Here's the first strategy, the listening session blueprint. Picture this, chairs arranged in a circle, educators sitting alongside parents, not at the front of them, but as equal. No slides, no podiums, no pre-written scripts, just honest, open conversation. That simple shift in setup signals something powerful. This isn't business as usual. This is about listening. Too often, school meetings feel rushed and one-sided. Parents get a few minutes to share concerns while administrators run the agenda. But when schools create intentional space to listen, really listen, everything starts to change. The setup matters. Instead of sending out a quick yes or no survey, try asking open-ended questions like, what would help your child thrive here? One district swapped their annual parent feedback form for small group chats. Within a few sessions, they discovered that most absences from events weren't about apathy, they were about scheduling conflicts. When they added evening options, attendance at school meetings quadrupled in just one semester. Educators sometimes hesitate to try this approach because there's a fear it'll open the floodgates to criticism. But time and time again, parents show up with a mindset of partnership, not blame. One school saw this clearly through some home visits. Teachers didn't come with a checklist. They showed up with curiosity. They asked about hopes, not just homework. And those simple conversations unlocked powerful changes. Like a literacy project that started with one father's idea and ended up helping dozens of students. To make these sessions work, keep the format simple. Small groups around 10 to 12 parents. Create space for everyone to speak. Setting ground rules like we listen to understand, not respond. Keep things respectful. And when staff members take notes instead of leading the discussion, the focus stays where it should be, on the families. And it doesn't take much to get started. You can dedicate just one staff meeting a month to reviewing what you've heard in these sessions. Track the common themes. Capture not just the concerns, but the solutions families offer because they have plenty. When parents see that their words lead to action, trust builds fast. One school learned about bullying issues through a listening session. Instead of launching another top-down initiative, they invited families to help design a solution. The result? A student-led peer mediation program that dropped incidents by more than half in just a few months. The ripple effects go beyond behavior. Schools that prioritize listening see better attendance, fewer discipline issues, and fewer conflicts with families because the problems get solved before they become bigger. One principal told me that after just 2 rounds of sessions, her staff spent far less time managing miscommunication with parents. That's the power of listening early, not reacting late. Want to reach more families? Make the format flexible. Use translation apps for multilingual families. Meet parents at local community centers. One rural district I know even held sessions in parked school buses around town. That move alone doubled participation. The message? We value your voice enough to meet you where you are. And here's something to keep in mind. The best sessions focus on dreams, not just problems. Ask parents what they hope for their child, not just what's going wrong. One teacher heard from a quiet student's parents about his love for engineering, and that shifted how she taught him. It's amazing what you can learn when you leave with curiosity. But none of this works unless schools close the loop. Families need to see that their input matters. Even small changes, like adjusting conference times, show that their voices aren't just heard, they're acted on. That kind of responsiveness builds the credibility needed for deeper collaboration down the road. These sessions aren't about collecting data, they're about building connection. They turn hesitant parents into engaged advocates. They give educators new insights and energy, and they help schools grow into true community spaces, not just places where information is pushed out. Still, listening is just the first step. Real partnership means going beyond hearing ideas. It means sharing power. So let's move into the next part where we'll look at how to move from input to influence and make families co-creators of school culture. Strategy number 2, shared decision making that works. Imagine a school where parents don't just show up to bake sales or back to school nights, but actually help make decisions. They're at the table for things like hiring new teachers, shaping school rules, and weighing in on budget choices. Sound radical? Well, it's not. It happens when schools stop doing things for parents and start doing things with them. But here's the reality. Most schools still treat parents like spectators. Even when parents join school communities, their role is often limited to giving feedback after decisions are mostly made. That's not real partnership. That's consultation with a suggestion box. True shared decision making looks different. Now let's say a school keeps suspending the same handful of students over and over. Nothing's working. Then they bring in families to help rethink the discipline policy. Instead of another list of rules, parents share ideas based on their own experiences, like community-based approaches or peer mediation rooted in their culture. And suddenly, things start to shift. Fewer suspensions, more trust. And here's another example. Teacher hiring. Parents know what kind of adults will connect with their kids. They notice things that might not come across on a resume, like how a teacher communicates or whether they seem culturally aware. When parents are part of the hiring process, schools often find a better fit, and those teachers tend to stick around longer. Still, many leaders hesitate to give families that level of involvement. Some worry about losing control. Others just aren't sure how to make it work. But the schools that get this right usually have one thing in common. They create clear systems. Parents understand where they have influence, how decisions are made, and what kind of feedback is actually used. It's not chaos, it's clarity with collaboration. One school I work with formed a parent leadership team that met monthly to review new policies. Staff agreed to respond to their recommendations within a set time frame. This didn't replace school leadership, it supported it. And when budget cuts came around, those same families helped find smart solutions that protected student support services. Every curriculum planning can benefit. The beauty is, you don't have to overhaul everything to start this process. Include parents in one hiring committee. Ask for feedback on a new school policy before it's finalized. Share your lesson plan early and ask what might help it land better at home. These small steps build momentum. When families help shape school decisions, they become allies. They understand the why behind school policies, and they're more likely to support them. They also feel more confident advocating, not just for their own child, but for the school community. And the students, they get to see their families treated as respected voices and not just helpers. Some educators worry that giving parents a say means giving up control. But here's the truth. Real leadership is about bringing people with you, not doing everything alone. When parents are trusted to help lead, the entire school becomes stronger. And it's not just about decisions, it's about resilience. When tough times hit, schools with shared decision-making in place already have trust, communication, and partnership. That foundation helps them weather storms together. So ask yourself, where could family voices make a difference in your school? Hiring, schedules, discipline? Start there. Don't wait for the perfect structure. Just begin with a conversation and build from that. The last strategy I'm going to give you is all about the small actions schools can take right now to build deeper family partnerships without needing a new program or budget. Because sometimes the most powerful change starts with simply asking, what do you think? This strategy is the relationship building hack. Think about the last time you got a random message from your child's teacher, but instead of bad news, it was something good. Maybe they called to say your child helped a classmate, or they sent a note celebrating a breakthrough in math. That kind of message sticks with you, right? Probably because it's rare. In a lot of schools, communication from teachers focuses on problems, missing homework, behavior issues, attendance, low grades, what have you. And after a while, parents start to expect the worst anytime the school reaches out. It creates a cycle where families brace themselves for criticism instead of feeling like true partners in their child's education. Here's the thing. It doesn't take a huge program or special event to flip that narrative. One simple shift is prioritizing regular, positive communication, which can build trust and open doors for real collaboration. Take a teacher I was working with, for example. She made a goal to call 2 parents a week just to share something positive about their child. Not a generic, they're doing great, but specific moments like asking a thoughtful question in class or showing kindness to a peer. Within a few months, something amazing happened. Families that had never shown up before started coming to conferences. Parents who had been silent started engaging. That small effort changed the whole dynamic. Other teachers used postcards, quick texts, or even short hallway chats to share wins. And it works. Because when families know that teachers see their child's strength, not just their struggles, they're more likely to listen, to show up, and to partner with the school. It's not about extra work. It's about better habits. Some schools set a goal. Each teacher contacts every family with a positive message at least 3 times a year. Others make it a routine to start every parent meeting with something the child is doing well. These simple systems reduce misunderstandings and build relationships that last. And let's talk about the messages themselves. A quick, great job doesn't mean much if it feels generic. But saying, Ariana stayed focused during the whole science lab today, and she even helped her group finish early, tells parents you see their child. It makes them feel like their kid matters, not just as a student, but as a person. The timing makes a difference too. When teachers reach out early in the school year with something positive, it sets the tone. That way, if a challenge comes up later, the relationship already has a foundation of trust. Some schools even time their positive notes before big events, like parent-teacher conferences. So the conversation starts on the right foot. And this strategy isn't just for the families who are already involved. It's especially powerful for those who felt disconnected. One mom said she saved a voicemail from her son's teacher for months. It was the first time anyone from school had called just to say something kind. That one message completely changed how she viewed the school. And it's good for teachers too. Educators who build in regular positive outreach often say it's one of their favorite parts of the week. It reminds them why they do this work. It reconnects them with the growth and potential in their classrooms, not just the problems. And it works in every setting. Whether your school is big or small, rural or urban, well-funded or under-resourced, you can find a way to make this happen. Some teachers use texting apps. Others keep a box of good news postcards by the door. One school even has students help, calling home with a teacher nearby to share something they're proud of that week. The goal is to make this a habit, not a one-time project. Templates and checklists help, but what really matters is consistency and care. A mass email isn't going to have the same impact as a personalized note about something a child did that day. When schools track how often they reach out with positive messages, not just corrections, they start to see a shift. Parents stop dreading phone calls. Teachers spend less time managing frustration. And most importantly, students begin to see that their school believes in them. Because when families and educators communicate about growth, not just gaps, everything changes. You don't just build trust, you build momentum. And that momentum makes every other strategy, shared decision-making, listening sessions, co-created curriculum, so much more powerful. The next and final section will tie all this together. How these small changes done consistently can create schools where families and educators truly walk side by side. All right, let's wrap this up. Here's what happens when schools stop treating parents like guests and start treating them like partners. Students do better, teachers feel less alone, and school communities grow stronger. And no, it's not just a feel-good idea. Every school that's made real progress has one thing in common. They listen to their families. They invite parents to the table, and they act on what they hear. We've covered a lot in this video, simple but powerful strategies like listening sessions, shared decision making, and regular positive communication. These things work because they treat parents as experts on their own kids, not just people who fill out forms or show up for open house. So what's your next step? Try just one thing this week. Call 3 parents to share good news. Invite a small group of families in for a real conversation. Or ask for input on something you're already planning. Like I always say, you don't have to change everything overnight, but each small shift builds trust. And that trust is what transforms a school from a place students attend to a place they belong. If this video was helpful, send it to a colleague who's ready to take the next step too. And if you want support bringing these ideas into your school, visit purposeful247.com to book a free consultation. And don't forget, like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss more videos on building strong school communities where everyone feels accepted, supported, and included.